So I'm sure that those of you watching this video, or some of you watching this video, have probably seen or known that the last few months have been a lot of kayaking for me. I've recently been in the east of Iceland. I managed to secure what was my first official guiding job for like a summer season for a period of like 5 months-ish. And the experience has been really incredible. You could probably, just by looking at this equipment that I have in front of me, that's pretty much the video, what this is going to be about today. And I found it interesting because I kind of wanted to talk about the pieces of equipment that I've been using for the past 5 months, and to sort of highlight what I think has been really important for me to gain the necessary skills to improve as a kayak guide over 5 months. And I'm sure I will continue to do so in the next season. But I think it's just a pretty cool thing to know that a lot of these pieces of equipment are here not just for safety, but they're also here to make my life more comfortable when I'm taking people out on the water. So you'll get to know how each and every piece here is sort of beneficial in its own way. And guiding was something that I really wanted to get into, and this was a kind of a really good first step. Met a lot of great people, and what was fantastic about this job was actually the team I was working with. I was working with an incredible team. Each and every one of them have their own skills in their own way of working, which is fantastic because you get to know sort of how people work, and you can sort of pick and choose, I guess, learn from everyone's experiences, and kind of make your own style, I guess, your own way of approaching guiding, which is a really cool thing for me. So I got to have a lot of experiences with a lot of different people within the team that weren't just about kayaking. Maybe we went on a glacier, maybe I went to a lecture, I learned a little bit more about this, I learned a little bit more about that. So it was kind of a really cool summer, because it was kind of an amalgamation of all of the guiding experiences I would want to have for a first timer thrown into one season. And that's what this was for me. So that's what this video is about. This video is going to be about the equipment that you see in front of you. And I will be discussing a little bit about how each and every piece was important to my process and my way of working. Let's kick off strong. Let's begin with, I guess, equipment piece number one. Now that I've already shown it, the cap. And the cap, this one was not the one I was using actually. This is a brand new one I just purchased from Fjellreven, kind of my favorite brand, this one right here. I have a lot of pieces of equipment from this brand just because I know it's really good quality. The one I was using over the summer season was a Nike one. It's just the cap. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything special. It's nothing super essential, but it's also nice to have. It's one of those items where it's just nice to have. What I will mention is that when it's a cold day, it's good to have a beanie, like kind of like a wool beanie. That's where something to cover the ears can actually be more important than something not having anything on you. I tend to find, or I have found a little bit, that my ears get cold, especially when you're getting into like cold temperatures, like in September, maybe the first week of October, or if there's a week of just pure rain in the glacier lagoon. It can become a real nightmare if you don't have something that's going to keep your ears warm, maybe your fingers, your toes. So I would say just a cap is good for a sunny day, but generally speaking, it's something that most guides were taking with them just because it's such a versatile piece of equipment. And it's something that you don't really think about too often, but it's nice to have in your backpack when you're taking to work. So yeah, number one is the cap. A pair of wool socks. It kind of sounds a bit silly or weird, but logically it makes sense to have a pair of wool socks. And this is going to be your second layer. And the reason why we have wool socks is because Well, it's cold, bottom line. And when it's a really cold day, what you don't want is to have cold feet from the very beginning. And a decent pair of these ones here are merino wool, and they're pretty good. The brand is Devold. I'm pretty sure that's the name. That's how you say it, Devold. And it's a good one. They're really nice and warm on the inside. They're going to keep your feet really toasty. However, this is a little something that I did realize myself over time. The two-piece suits, the suits that we actually get dressed in, over time they can become less resistant. So I found that these started to get soaked, and there was not really any way around it. I ended up investing in something called sealskins. And sealskins, I will show you, are these right here. These are sealskins. Let me see if the camera can pick it up. Okay. So those are sealskins. And sealskins are kind of like this synthetic material. I'm not 100% sure. Let's have a look at the material here. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what the full details of the material is, but I will leave, in the description of this video, I will leave some information about sealskins and something like neoprene. Neoprene is going to be really good for anything that's like dealing with water sports, and so are sealskins. Sealskins are fantastic. These are going to keep your feet absolutely dry, like super dry. It's insane. As soon as I switched to these sealskins, I didn't have any leakage problems whatsoever in the suit. So yeah, sealskins are a really great investment for kayaking, but they're also kind of expensive. Like this pair, only one pair, and bear in mind, it's not even that long. Like this is the length of the sock. This ran me like 60 pounds or like something like $70, something like this. So they're expensive, and you'll find that most of this equipment here is going to be expensive equipment, but necessary nonetheless. So yeah, sealskins definitely a must, at least for me anyway. They're not, of course, 100% important. You can deal with wool socks. It also depends on the length that you're going on the water for. I think something for like an hour should be fine, which was most of my tours. However, if you're kayaking for a little bit more than that, maybe something like 2-3 hours, it's probably a good idea to have a pair of like thin wool socks and then chuck on a pair of sealskins over that. It's just going to keep your feet dry. You're going to have less problems with changing in the future. So since I've already discussed about sealskins and how great of a piece of equipment I think it is, I think it's only fair that I talk about gloves. And gloves have always been a hit and miss for me throughout the season. This summer specifically hasn't exactly been the sunniest summer, although we have had some incredible days with some great sun. But when it's cold, and believe me, it gets bitterly cold on a glacier lagoon when you're next to ice, you need to wrap up warm. And one of the things that I take when it is cold, gloves. I rarely use gloves, but I only typically use gloves when it's raining. Now, you're probably thinking, that sounds a little counterintuitive. Why would you use gloves if it's raining if they're going to get wet? And that's probably what you're thinking now. And that's a fair point. That's what I thought as well. I started wearing the gloves when it was raining only for one very specific reason. The gloves will keep me warm for about 10 minutes, 15 more or less, depending on the glove that you have. Like, for example, these ones right here from 66 North, okay? They're kind of thin, but they're pretty decent. They're not made of wool. It's kind of like a blend on the inside, and they're going to keep your fingers relatively warm. They're also quite thin, so it's quite nice. You don't lose too much grip on the paddle, okay? So it's pretty good. However, every single piece of equipment does also have its limits in terms of how much water it can handle. Gloves are definitely no exception. After about 15 minutes, once it hits that kind of mark, these become useless. So the reason why I do take them is because at least within the 1 hour, I have 15 minutes of warm hands. After that, dealing with the cold is pretty much part and parcel of the job. However, I did mention that seal skins were a fantastic material. It's going to keep your feet really nice and dry. And that's what these are from. If I'm not mistaken, this brand is Luna, and it's pretty good. It's basically a neoprene. It's kind of an incredibly water-resistant material. And these gloves typically are used for things like kayaking, surfing sometimes, although I don't surf too much. Surfing and any form of like water sport activity that you can possibly think of. It's good to have these more in cold conditions, I would say, than like surfing in the Mediterranean. You're not really going to need these too much. I would say the reason why these are slightly better than just the standard glove is because of grip. And these here are going to keep my fingers a lot warmer for a lot longer before they start to get really wet. Plus, it also has a kind of a textured grip here on the inside. So as the glove is gripping around the paddle itself, it's not really losing too much grip. So I'm able to hold and control the paddle in the direction that I want without slipping too much. In my opinion, nothing is going to beat just holding the paddle with your hand. This is going to be always the best grip. But if you're going to use neoprene gloves, I think it's kind of a good workaround. So it's a good one to have. I would definitely recommend buying neoprene gloves if you yourself want a pair. One last thing I'm going to mention about the gloves, millimeters. This one here is a 3mm, so it's not terribly thick, which also means that it's much more likely to get drenched quicker than it is a slightly thicker millimeter neoprene glove. Just something to consider. Was nothing really that I found detrimental to my kayaking experiences. I think with these 3mm was just fine. I mean, what I was mainly concerned about was just the rain. It's kind of inevitable that in the kayak you're going to have the spray of the water. It's part of it. But it was kind of good just for the rain. So yeah, decent pair of equipment. Let's start to get into some slightly bigger pieces of equipment. The equipment that's really going to keep you warm, properly warm. Because ultimately, aside from the socks, actually, the socks are pretty essential. Stuff like the gloves, the cap, this is all extra, which is great. But the stuff that is really going to keep you warm before you even put on the two-piece suit, which I'm going to show you in just a moment, are these. And this was kind of a lifesaver for me, in a sense. This right here are very thin wool base layers. So depending on the weather, and it was something that we checked in advance. If we found that the next day was a high probability of being really sunny, maybe I might not even consider wearing these. I might wear my synthetic versions, which means that I'm not going to roast as much. But the reason why I bought a pair of wool base layers, not just for, these are the pants, by the way, these are the trousers, the ones that go underneath your suit. But the reason why I bought not just my synthetic version, but the wool version of this, which I have right here, is because when it is cold, the wool is going to keep you much warmer than a synthetic version would. And it's the first layer that you want touching your skin. So I found that this was kind of an essential piece of equipment for me during my kayaking process. When you are not paddling and you're just sort of like stood still, your body temperature will start to drop. So as soon as you're paddling, your body temperature is getting up, you're moving, you're basically exercising, that's what it is. But as soon as you stop to take some nice pictures, or you stop because, I don't know, my clients were stopping and they wanted to take some pictures and they wanted to see this area, your body temperature can plummet a little bit. So it's good to have a really nice base layer to control that. And it really depends on the day. If it's a raining day, like I know it's going to be a week of rain, then I'm going to go for wool. There is no other thing I'm going to wear. It's just going to be wool. So that's why I say wool's pretty important. Yeah, it was an important piece of equipment. Two-piece suit I keep in this bag right here. You probably have already seen the corner of the bag on the screen, but I'm just going to take it here and I'm going to show you the two-piece suit that we have. The suit, the reason why I say it's a two-piece suit is because A, it's not a dry suit, and B, it's not a wetsuit. A dry suit is basically one of those suits that you see that you have to pull over like this, and it's kind of got a bit of a collar, so it's quite restrictive. And the good thing about a dry suit is that depending, of course, on the thickness of the dry suit, if it's a nice thick dry suit, you could pretty much be submerged in the water, come out, and you'd be fully dry underneath. So that's the whole point of a dry suit, is that you are dry inside. We used a two-piece suit. And the reason why we used a two-piece suit, more than anything, mobility and comfortability. You want your clients to be comfortable on the water. So that's what the company that I worked for decided to go with, which was actually a really good choice. And we also wore a two-piece suit. It does mean that once you're in the water, if for whatever reason I fell in, which I didn't, but if for whatever reason I would fall in with this suit, I would get soaked underneath. So it's just something that I had to consider myself. But what I loved about these suits so much was that they are really easy to put on. This is obviously going to be your main piece of equipment. And here we have this is the top, right? This is what it looks like, okay? It has some features, like for example, it has this here. You can see it's kind of a neck thing. And this, what we do is once our head is basically here, my head is going to be here, we just sort of close this up and we close this here with the Velcro, and it's created kind of like a nice seam. So some water is going to get through, but not a lot, like maybe a few drips, which is kind of nice, especially if it's raining. I like to keep this nice and tight. So I'm actually quite dry underneath. That's a good thing. These things can hold quite a bit of water. There is a limit, which I have found. I have definitely found the limit with these, but they're quite nice. It's a good piece of equipment to have. So that's the top. And this right here, these are the pants. All right. And the pants have two features, something really interesting. They have these booties here, which are completely attached, all right? They're basically sewn in on the inside here. And what you do is, this here is a skirt compartment. You can see it's kind of an attachment here, and it's also attached to the inside. So you cannot pull this out. This cannot be pulled out. This I would open, I'd go inside with my layers, basically stuff everything I have inside here, and my feet would be inside of these booties with my socks already on. So this is kind of like the last piece you put on. My boss was kind enough to let me have this one until the next season. So it's kind of my responsibility to take care of it, which is quite nice. I like it. That's what I like about these. That's what I like about these suits. You can really take care of them, and you can reapply them with. You can reapply them with like a very specific spray that makes it the water repellent. It kind of like brings it back and makes it a little bit stronger. So that's also quite nice. I'll be giving it a respray pretty soon, but. That's basically the two-piece suit in a nutshell. I'm actually going to show you a video of me putting on the two-piece suit pretty much right now, so you see exactly the process of how I would put this on. Now, these here are the boots, okay? And I'm gonna show you the boots right now. So this is the boot, okay? They go over this extra padding that you've already seen, that I've already showed you. And the reason why I always go a size up with the boots is because we're gonna have the socks, so it's gonna be kind of like an extra layer. The boots are really good because instead of using your own shoes, you use something that is just gonna be totally wet on the outside and then you're gonna be fully dry on the inside. So it's kind of great, you know? It's a great piece of equipment. It's super important to note that these rubber boots, they were just like, I mean, they don't do shit for warmth. It's just to keep you dry. That's pretty much it. Before I talk about the life vest, I'm actually going to talk about this, now that it's on the table. This is a piece of equipment that you might not even think is necessary, or at least I didn't think was necessary, until I realized just how much I needed it, and that's a torch. The lack of sunlight meant that it sometimes became a little bit difficult to see how it is I was roping the boats together. So this is always good to have, even though it's not 100% necessary. It's good to have in case you need to search for something in low light conditions. And there were several instances where I was maybe closing down the trailer or strapping the boats in, and this was the difference between being able to see and not see. We've done the suit. Yeah, something awesome, something really cool. Ice axe. So, this is an ice axe, you can see here. I was lucky enough to have my colleague, Jan, thank you very much, Jan, who had too many of these and he wanted to sell one, so I purchased this one off of him very recently, actually. And I'm really happy I did, because this ice axe was something that is not always used for kayaking, but it is used for going on the glacier. I kayaked mostly in the biggest one, and the biggest one is called Jökulsárlón, and Jökulsárlón is the biggest glacial lagoon in Iceland. There were several times where I kayaked in a slightly smaller glacial lagoon called Heineberg, and in this smaller glacial lagoon, we had an ice axe with us. That's because we landed on pieces of ice and we kind of walked around, did a bit of a ice walk. So I would use this ice axe to essentially be kayaking forward, okay? Propel myself onto the ice, and I would take this ice axe from my boat and immediately slam it onto the ice forward and propel myself up by slamming it in and moving up the ice. That was the process of getting up onto the ice. At least the process that I did it. It wasn't always the same, but that was, I found, a really easy way of getting onto the ice quick. Getting close to a piece of ice when you need to, but also maintaining control. So that's what I felt that this was the reason why I'm actually talking about it with you today, and the reason why I actually have it as part of my equipment process. Again, it's not necessary for kayaking. At least I only used it when I was in this other glacier lagoon, when I was working in Heineberg. But when I was working there, the ice axe was important. This made getting onto the ice as efficient as possible. I'm sure you've already seen it in the video that I've basically just shown you, where I've shown you the process of actually putting on the suit itself, and the life vest as well is part of that. And the life vest is safety. This is just pure safety. This is my friend's life vest. He was kind enough to allow me to borrow it just for the shoot of this video. He wears a size large, I wear a size small/medium. So I'm not going to be putting it on because I've already shown you how I've put it on. But it's just good to see it in front of me for this video right now. So you get to see how the life vest sort of works, how it functions, and how basically we use it to the best of our abilities. But the life vest is this right here, and it has several features, okay? This is basically what it looks like, right? It has a few pockets here on the side. I used to have my radio on my right side, and I used to hook my radio on this kind of hook right here. I'd have my phone in this one, I basically took my phone to take pictures. I like to carry a few things with me. I like to carry a pair of sunglasses, a tow rope, which I'll get into in just a second. And my friend here has a knife. Okay, he has a knife with him. This kind of like a very specific knife. Realistically, for an emergency situation, if you need to cut the line. So that's what the knife is there for. Let's get into the tow rope. And the tow rope is by far, it's this right here, okay? You can see it. It has a carabiner. This is what we call a carabiner. Right. This right here is a carabiner. It's kind of a quick release. Yeah, the tow rope is pretty good to have. Basically, the reason why the tow rope is essential and useful is because if you have someone that is struggling, I definitely had my fair share of people that struggled. Not everyone has the same physical ability to kayak for 1 hour straight. I would essentially get this, basically this piece right here, this carabiner, which would be attached to the rope, as you can see now. And the rope is fed inside this bag, right? So there's about a 16-meter line. That's how long the rope is, 16 meters. Pass it through on the inside, right? So the rope would be going like this, and I would hook this onto my line. So I would have basically a little section here on the side where I would just clip on the side, okay? That was the one that I used. This one has it on the shoulder, so you would clip it on the shoulder. And it would become, instead of 16 meters, it would be half that. So the distance would be much easier for me to control. And it comes in its own tow rope bag. You can see here, it's pretty cool, right? This is the tow rope, okay? For obvious reasons, I am not gonna take this out because to put it back in means that I would have to spend about 5 minutes doing so. So I'm sorry, but it's not gonna happen. Even though I would like to, but yeah, it just takes a little bit of time to put it back in. How vital it is as a piece of equipment that we own. Something I am gonna note, something extra, you might have seen it just now, a watch. And my one is this one right here, okay? I use a Garmin watch just because Garmin is really good on the, you know, if I take it in the water, nothing's gonna happen, it's totally fine. I don't really care if it gets scratched or bunged up. That's what they're here for. And I like to use Garmin because it's an incredibly reliable watch to have when I'm kayaking. And it's much easier to have this attached. I basically had the life vest on and I would have this attached on the life vest around about here. So as I was paddling forward, all I had to do, instead of unzip to check my phone, I would just go like this. So the time it took for me to look at the watch and continue paddling was reduced by half. So yeah, that's basically I think most of the equipment. There is one final piece, and that's the paddle itself. I'm going to show it to you in a moment. But I would say that the most important pieces of equipment have already been talked about. A piece of the puzzle. I'm going to put this on. We were provided the kayak paddles by the company, so this wasn't a piece of equipment that I was basically using. But these are the kayak paddles. Pretty much the same brand that I was working with, so that's kind of nice that I can actually show you, okay? I'm gonna have to, it's quite tall. Okay, so these are the paddles that we're using. All right, they're quite long. See if you can get most of the length in. Don't want to smash anything. Whoops. So yeah, that's the scoop. That's the back of the blade. And what's nice about this paddle is that, well, this one is a plastic. So it's pretty light, pretty easy. It has decent feathering. So you could probably, I mean, there are paddles from carbon fiber to plastic, plastic being cheaper, carbon fiber being the most expensive paddles. However, there is a benefit to having, you know, carbon fiber paddles. Only thing, they're just stupid expensive. So it really depends on the paddle that I'm gonna be investing in the future. I will be investing in one. I'm just not sure which one. But yeah, that's most of the equipment now, if not everything. There are a few little bits and pieces that I have sort of collected a little bit over time. I made an Instagram video recently about a sleeping bag that I did purchase, which is, I believe, it fell on the floor. I'll get it. There we go. This one right here. Simond sleeping bag. It's pretty good. I've already made a whole video about it. Yeah, I've already made a whole YouTube video about it. Instagram video about it. But I think I'm gonna make more of an in-depth review of not just this bag, but the various pieces of camping equipment that I've purchased over time in the last 5 months, and that I will start purchasing once I go back to Spain and I go to Decathlon, because it's cheaper buying it there than it is in Iceland, period. So yeah, once I purchase some more equipment, I'll probably make a new YouTube video about what I have updated and what equipment I'm going to be using for camping for the next summer season. So that'll be interesting to know. But for now, that's pretty much it for the kayaking gear. I don't think I have anything else I need to talk about. Thank you so much for sticking around and for watching this video. If you've made it to the end, I really appreciate it. I hope you found it interesting. And I hope that if you do plan on doing kayaking, that this kind of gives you an idea of what you can invest in, or what's maybe needed, or what's maybe not needed for wherever it is that you're going to be kayaking. So yeah, thanks a lot, and I will see you on the next one.